Go live.
Okay. So hello everybody, good morning and welcome to eduphoreias and Hindu analysis class. Today we'll be starting with the 5th of today, 5th of June. So of course we'll be starting with the 5th of June, the Hindu analysis. Fine. So let us start with the first thing. So on the first front, main front page you can see today, the railway board alleges signaling interference 6 CBI proof. Okay, so we'll be fine. We should keep tab on this because this was a major accident that took place in the railway history in the recent times. So of course we need to, and what is more important from the government's point of view is what the CBI proof finds actually. The inquiry reports finds. Okay. Oh, so sorry, I missed on mic. I'm so sorry. So hello everybody. Good morning. Welcome to eduphoreias, the Hindu analysis series. And today we'll be starting with the first, on the front page. So 5th of June, the Hindu paper this is. So first is about the railway board alleged signaling interference 6 CBI proof. So of course, what happened recently, the major, this in the recent months, major, this accident that took place in the railway history. So of course, around almost 277 to near about 280 people died, 1,000 plus are injured. So you can see the the gravity of this problem, this accident. So of course, what I am underlining here is what is important from the exam point of view is some things related to governance. Let us say that what CBI actually finds in its reports after proving this all the this matter, then it will be relevant for us, so that it will be a kind of eye opening for us, or you can say a lesson for us, so that we do not encounter such problems or face such accidents in future. Fine. So this would be a policy matter thing. So we'll be keeping tab on this, but it's not as important to delve into detail as far as this topic is concerned. Okay. Further moving ahead, panel formed to investigate. We have already discussed this. Is a panel formed to investigate ethnic violence in Manipur. So of course, 3-member committee. You can see 3-member commission of inquiry to investigate the ethnic violence in Manipur has been formed. So this again we need to keep in mind. Why it's not working? Okay. So 3-member commission of inquiry to investigate the ethnic violence in Manipur that took place. So Union Home Ministry has issued the notification that the commission shall submit its report to the central government as soon as possible, but not later than 6 months. So after 6 months, we'll be having the report of this particular 3-member commission, that what exactly was the cause or the issues that led to such violence in Manipur. Fine. So again, we need to keep tab on this, so that we'll be better acquainted with what is coming out of this report, this inquiry commission's inquiry report. Fine. Okay. Further, so related to this only railway thing, we'll be discussing Kavach, the indigenous developed system by this DRDO Kavach system. We'll see that what exactly is the Kavach. Indigenous built this basically protects the trains from colliding. So of course we see that what is this Kavach all about, and whether this Kavach were fitted on the trains that collided or not. Fine. And if had they had there been Kavach on those trains, then was it possible, or would it be possible to prevent such accidents or not? See to it. Fine. Everything we'll discuss in detail. The Kavach from this topic. Fine. So let us move to the next page. One by one, we'll move to the pages. Okay. So there are 2-3 things which are important for HS exam and PCS exam even, and we'll discuss it briefly at what are those miscellaneous news on the local pages. So this has been covered under this because we'll see to it. I think this is a Delhi edition, and those would be covered in tri-state related. So probably okay. Yes, this is the thing that I was mentioning. Himachal and Punjab. So those who are appearing for HS exam on 23rd of July 2023, the next month, this could be important. Himachal and Punjab appear set for face-off over Shanaan power project. Now we need to keep in mind 2-3 facts from here. Shanaan project, power project, what exactly is it and where it is located. Fine. So little bit facts and figures from here. So Shanaan power project is basically a Punjab and Himachal Pradesh set for a face-off as the 99-year lease on the British era 110 megawatt Shanaan hydropower project situated at Jogendra Nagar in Mandi district of Himachal Pradesh, presently under the control of Punjab government, will expire in March 2024. So what is all about? It's all about that this Shanaan power project, which was which is based on lease, 99 years lease on the British era, and remember the capacity of this project is power project is 110 megawatt. So this could be a question, a factual question, that what exactly is the capacity of this power project or where it is being located. So it is located though in Mandi district of Himachal Pradesh, but it has been leased out to Punjab government. Fine, remember this much. Presently under the control of Punjab government, that is going to expire in March 2024. So of course Himachal Pradesh or Himachal government would like to get back this hydropower project. Fine, because lots of issues in our country going related to this interstate water disputes. Fine. So of course water is a precious resource, so no state would like to share it with other. So this is the issue. So what exactly is the bone of contention? So Himachal Pradesh wants the project handed over to the state on expiry of the lease period. The Punjab government on the other hand is in no mood to part with its prized project and is prepared to take legal recourse to retain it. So you can see that battle is somewhere ensuing, the legal battle especially. So we need to keep tap on this as well. And moreover, not going into the politics of what is going between these two states. So just focusing on the analytics part, which is important for the exam. So this is, remember, the 110 megawatt Shanaan power project was envisaged by Colonel Batai, the then chief engineer of the government of Punjab, in 1922. The first stage, that is 48 megawatt of the project, was commissioned in the year 1932, and the project was constructed following the execution of the lease agreement in 1925. So remember, this project came into being in 2 stages. First was of 48 megawatt, and the remaining out of 110 was constructed in or commissioned in the second stage. So this is important, this much is important. Politics is not important for us. Fine, at least at this stage. Okay. Next, another important thing is center विचार कर रही है इस चीज पे कि इक्वल शेयर दिया जाए इन द प्रॉपर्टी टू एसटी women, scheduled tribes women. Fine. And Union Minister Ajura Megwal has said this. Now he is a Union Law Minister. Fine. So, but before going into this, there are certain issues because this welfare, remember, consultation with the state governments are required as a subject matter falls on list 3, that is concurrent list under 7th schedule of the Constitution. Fine, where both can make laws or frame laws. Concurrent list is a list of the subjects on which both state and your central government can make laws. Fine. So that's why here the central government would be required to consult to the states. Fine. But final, the say rests with the government, the central government or the parliament, you can say. But it's a good augury, or a good example of cooperative federalism where the government is coming up with the, proposing to discuss these matters with the respective state governments. So this is a very good thing. Okay. So center for this purpose has to, will have to somewhere, amend the Hindu Succession Act. So center is considering a notification in the Hindu Succession Act to apply beneficial provisions to the scheduled tribes women who profess Hinduism to enable them to inherit an equal share in the properties of their fathers or Hindu undivided families. Union Minister of State for Law has said this. Fine. So this was a question was asked to the Honorable Minister by a DMK member, Rajya Sabha member, related to this, and in reply to that, the question, this is what being mentioned was mentioned by Honorable Law Minister. Fine. So in his reply, Mr. Megwal quoted a case of Supreme Court. In his reply, Mr. Megwal pointed out that in the matter of Kamala Neti versus Special Land Acquisition Officer and others, the Supreme Court had directed the center to consider whether an amendment was necessary to withdraw the exemption under the Hindu Succession Act insofar as the applicability of its provision was provisions to the scheduled tribes was concerned. So in this particular case is important, remember this, Kamala Neti versus Special Land Acquisition Officers and others, in which Supreme Court underlined that the government should look after this matter, and if need arises, government should take into account the exemptions provided under the Hindu Succession Act in order to provide, yes, the ST women their fair share in the inheritance of the property. Fine. So I think this much sufficient from these two, from this matter. Let us now move to the next page. Okay. 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 Further moving ahead, these are politics, none of use for us. Okay, so this could be important for us as far as preliminary exam is concerned. Black turtles, flap shell black turtles, miscellaneous facts for prelims, dead in fire in private land in Kasargod. Fine. So 56 turtles were burned to death after a fire broke out on 5 acres of wetland, Panki near in Kasargod in Kerala. Fine. So wetland है ये, wetland का नाम क्या है? It's Panki, at Panki. Fine. So two facts are important: black turtles alongside the wetland which is located at Panki or in Kasargod district of Kerala. Fine. Okay. So I think not much detail here, that much. Yes. So we can further what is important for the prelim exam, the facts is here. The private land which this much, 22 Indian flap shell and 34 black turtles which come under Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 of the Wildlife Protection Act were burned to death when local people and forest department personnel arrived. Okay, so what is important here is that this Indian flap shell and black turtles fall under Wildlife Protection Act Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 respectively. Means we have accorded the highest form of protection to these two species. Fine. So you need to keep in mind that under which schedule both these species comes. Fine. One. So this much is important for preliminary exam. Okay. Moving to next pages. Okay. Okay. Okay, so here we came the most important page, of this this Hindu newspaper, page number 8, editorial, and here we'll be discussing one of the important topics which is related to the Delhi government. What is going on between the central government and the Delhi government is basically the presidential ordinance related to the services matters, which has been issued. Okay, so this is all about taking the control of the service matters in Delhi specifically in the administrative matters, where it is related to the appointment of the bureaucrats or the you can say IAS officers particularly, or the bureaucrats, let us say, including every, not just IAS but even every single officers. Fine. So the Delhi Ordinance is an unabashed power grab. This is what has been alleged by the writer, that this ordinance, which has been issued on the this May 19, in the backdrop of an order of the constitutional bench judgment rather of May 11. Fine. So we'll see, we'll discuss in detail what's under this is an unabashed power grab. So he is alleging that this is a kind of power grab, and this goes against the notion of federalism as well. And this is, and to certain extent there are certain terms under this, like for example federalism. So what is federalism? Federalism is basically the distribution of power, let us say, between the two units of government, let us say central and state. Fine. Then we will be having certain terminology here. Constitutionalism. Constitutionalism is what? Constitutionalism is basically governing the federation, or governing the units, let us say constituting units, state or center, according to the laws and rules prescribed under the constitution, or through under the constitution. Of course, governance according to the constitution or constitutional acts and this legislation. So these are some things. Then we have asymmetric, another terminology here is in this article is asymmetric federalism. So what exactly is asymmetric federalism? So asymmetric federalism in simple terms means that the different constituting units, like let us say different states in India, having different sets of power structure. On what basis? Be it on the ethnicity, be it on linguistic basis, and be it on a different socio-economic fabric as well. So it could be like northern state, eastern states having certain provisions, let us say privileges, and some other states like 371 provides certain privileges to the states like Gujarat and Maharashtra, particular region Vidarbha and all. And similarly, like 5th and 6th schedule of the constitution dealing with the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes respectively. So of course even these provide special privileges, or you can say special powers to the certain sects of our society. Fine. And on the similar lines, we will see even 370 article, which gave special powers to the Jammu and Kashmir, which has now been abolished altogether. So these are the examples of basically you can say asymmetric federation. Means not all every state in India is not having the same power. Fine. Powers vary based on the local factors. Fine. And this has been envisaged or mentioned under our constitution itself. Fine. So that's why India as a whole cannot be termed as a symmetric federation, rather asymmetric federation. Fine. So let us now go into the detail and discuss what exactly has been mentioned in this article. Okay. So brief background for you. On May 11, as I said, judge constitution bench basically pronounced a judgment. So on an 8-year-long protracted legal battle that was going on between the, you can say, central government, or you can say the LG and versus lieutenant governor directly appointed by center and between the elected government of New Delhi, this NCTD, that is National Capital Territory of Delhi. Fine. So after this 8 years of protracted legal battle, a 5-judge constitutional bench led by the the Chief Justice of India unanimously held that the elected government of Delhi had legislative and administrative powers over services. Now see these wordings. Clear cut mentioned under this judgment that legislative in matters of legislation and administrative and administration related problems like for appointing of officers and their transfers and all, this so service matters basically rest with whom? Rest with the elected government of Delhi. Fine. I hope this much is clear about the background. But what happened after that? So on May 19, exactly after a week, you can say what happened. The Union government came up with on May 19, the Union government promulgated an ordinance under Article 123, 123. President can promulgate ordinances to amend this NCDT Act 1991 that effectively nullified the Supreme Court judgment of May 11 on the powers of bureaucratic appointments in Delhi. Fine. So now what has happened? this amendment, this ordinance basically appointed make provisions for this national capital, national capital, makes provisions for National Capital Civil Services Authority. Under this, 3 members would be there, fine. One would be Chief Minister, other would be Chief Secretary, and other would be Principal Secretary Home, or you can say Home Secretary. So 3 officers. So what has been alleged under this is that since CM elected head, fine, is a member of this National Capital Civil Services Authority 3-member commission, but the issue is now that these 2 persons, Chief Secretary and Principal Secretary, basically this governed by the administers through the rules of course the appointing authority is a Home Ministry, or DOPT you can say particularly. That is in nutshell the central government. So of course you can safely label that here labeled as that these 2 sets of persons belonging to the center, and this one just is CM. So in this, decision would be taken on the basis of majority. So basically that the majority rests with the central appointing officers or the bureaucrats. So of course this again sidelines the role of CM. This is the basic allegations, fine. So ordinance removes, ordinance ने एक चीज करी क्या की, it removes entry 41 that rests with the services of the state list from the Delhi government's control and creates a National Capital Civil Service Authority. So you know that at this moment in Delhi basically 3 subjects are out of the domain of Delhi elected government, and that is land, land, then you have public order, and the other is police, and the 4th one which has been exempted through this ordinance is entry 41 of this state list which comprises of the services. So this is, so ordinance you can say safely the objective of this ordinance is removing the 4th or exempting the 4th one, that is services, taking out from the state list and putting it under the control of the central government, fine, especially in the context of Delhi, that is putting it in the hands of the LG, Lieutenant Governor, fine. So this is the story so far. I have already told you that the decision of this authority will be made through majority voting, which means that the 2 union appointed bureaucrats could overrule the elected chief minister, fine. Further, this ordinance provides that if disagreement arises between the Delhi this appointment National Capital Civil Services Authority and the LG, if there is any point of disagreement, then the final call of LG, the decision of the LG will prevail over this authority's decision. So again it is giving upper hand to what? The LG of Delhi. Okay. So the ordinance raises multiple legal and political questions. This is what the author is saying regarding federalism, democracy, bureaucratic accountability, executive law making, and judicial review, even judicial review. So these are the important keywords in polity, you can say, like federalism, democracy, bureaucratic accountability, executive law making, and judicial review. So these are all mentioned by this author, that this ordinance basically raises multiple legal and political questions regarding to all these keywords mentioned in our constitution, fine. So opposition parties, of course opposition parties, the politics going on is like Honorable CM of Delhi is asking for support from the opposition parties in order to defeat this ordinance in Rajya Sabha particularly, fine, because in Lok Sabha the current central government has thumping majority, so of course there it won't be of any use. So of course, but here the Congress is not with the AAP, let us say, and Congress leader Ajay Makan said that cooperative federalism principles don't fit Delhi since it is the national capital, fine. So this much these 2 lines just clears the stand of Congress, that how Congress is going to react with this. So Congress is not altogether going to support the AAP government, fine, especially in the Rajya Sabha, because according to them cooperative federalism principles don't fit Delhi, means Delhi is having asymmetric federalism, and Delhi's setup is altogether different than other union territories of India, because Delhi itself is national capital. Fine. Okay. So asymmetric federalism and Delhi. What exactly is asymmetric federalism? As I said in the beginning, that asymmetric federalism is a kind of political system where the different constituting units, or the let us say states, having different sets of powers based on ethnicity, based on this linguism or linguistic or even socio-economic fabric or other point of distinction. So the position of Delhi in India's federal constitutional scheme is not straightforward. The Supreme Court in its May 11 verdict had noted that the addition of Article 239 AA in the Constitution accorded the NCTD a sui generis status. Sui generis is something unique, fine, which is unique from other union territories of the state. Fine, we will see how. So what court said further? The court held that there is no homogeneous. The court held that there is no homogeneous class of union territories and states. Rather, India's constitution has several examples of special governance arrangements which treat federal units differently from each other. Now, these lines are very, very important. You can quote as it is these lines in your governance related or polity and governance GS2 answer writing. Fine. It further noted in its ruling, the Supreme Court noted in its ruling that the special provisions for states under Article 371 are in the nature of asymmetric federalism and made for accommodating the differences and the specific requirements of that particular regions that I initially gave you. That Vidarbha region has certain privileges, like even in Gujarat, even in northern states being covered under 371, like we have this inner line permits for Nagaland and all So of course, these are the things which basically differentiate or make distinction between one set of states from the other based on their local, you can say, cultural practices, ethnicity, linguistic differences and all. Fine. Basically, specific requirements of, you can say, that particular region. Okay. So scholars of federalism have long argued that for countries with deep social cleavages along ethnic, linguistic and cultural lines, an asymmetric model of federalism which accommodates the interest of various social groups through territorial units is desirable. So this is undenying fact that such kind of asymmetric federalism is good for a nation or augurs good for a society which has you can say socio-economic this distinction or especially the deep social cleavages, fine, based on all these ethnic, linguistic and cultural lines, fine. Further, India's federal system has been described as asymmetric due to the special status it accorded to Jammu and Kashmir under Article 370 before its dilution and special protections under Article 371, 5th and 6th schedule areas. So this is very, very important again lines that why India, why India is described as having asymmetric kind of federalism. Fine. So this is the answer because different states, few states has been given different privileges or you can say the distinctive privileges based on their local requirements. Fine. And you can quote the example Article 371 earlier, not now. 371 is still in in fashion, and 5th and 6th schedule areas, of course, they are there. So what is striking about the court's judgment? Now the author questions the judgment of the Supreme Court itself. So what is striking about the court judgment is that it used the asymmetric federalism framework to clarify the position of the NCTD. But in India's federal scheme, it remarked that though NCTD is not a full-fledged state, since its legislative assembly is constitutionally entrusted to legislate upon subjects in the state and concurrent list, the insertion of Article 239 AA created an asymmetric federal model for the NCTD. So this has been said by the court's judgment that NCTD also is having a kind of asymmetric federalism and not the symmetric federalism, not the example of symmetric federal model, rather an example of asymmetric model. Okay, so while the NCTD remains a union territory, the unique constitutional status conferred upon it makes it a federal entity. Okay, though here the author says that though, or this has been labeled in judgment itself, that though NCTD we are saying that is having asymmetric kind of federalism, but still since it it is having legislature, alongside it has rights to legislate on the matters mentioned in the state list under 7th schedule as well as the concurrent list. So of course it again a good example, or it is a shining example, or you can say good example of having unique constitutional status conferred upon it, which makes it a federal entity. So indeed it is having asymmetric federation, but it is also a federal entity. Fine. Okay. So while the invocation of asymmetric federalism for Delhi is interesting, the court was mute. Now he is labeling that court was mute a spectator when this idea was annihilated in Jammu and Kashmir. So the same he says the principle could have been used for Jammu and Kashmir when the special 370 article was abolished. Fine, this is what is labeling against the judgment. So nevertheless, articulation of the underlying principle of federalism in this case is welcome, but he says that nevertheless what has been articulated or what has been mentioned in the judgment as a principle of federalism is very much welcome. Okay. So the court noted that principles of federalism and democracy are interlinked, since the state's exercise of legislative power gives effect to people's aspiration, and that federalism creates dual manifestation of the public will. How? Because center is having people expectation, you can say, or the central and states having different sets of requirements, or you can say different expectations or aspirations of the people from the two sets of governments. Fine. So in which the priorities of the two sets of governments, that is central and states, are not just bound to be different but are intended to be different. This line is very important. Not just bound to be different but are intended to be different. Okay, and this what actually makes our entities federal. Fine. Okay, such a clear expression of the federal principle punctures hollow exhortations of cooperative federalism. So he says that such a clear expression of basically asymmetric kind of federalism we are having, and federal entity manifests the different sets of will of the people, that is by the central and state respectively. So he says this goes against the nature of cooperative federalism that actually we talk about, or punctures the very concept of notion of cooperative federalism that have been weaponized to centralize Indian politics. Fine. So he finds that one is antithesis of the other, or in contradiction to the, like asymmetric federalism is in contradiction to the cooperative federalism. This is what he is labeling here. So the law and politics of federalism, the presidential ordinance is problematic at different levels. Now he labels that the ordinance which has been promulgated by the Honorable President of India has certain problems or problematic. In what sense, we will see one by one. First reason is the government's swift action the government swift and brazen act of, focus on the wordings, the government's swift and brazen act of undoing a constitution bench judgment does not augur well for judicial independence. While the legislature can alter the legal basis of judgment, it cannot directly overrule the judgment itself. Now this line is very important, that though the judgment can be amended, checking this the legal basis, but it cannot be directly overruled. So this he labels goes against the independence of judiciary. Okay. Further, the executive law making through an ordinance, as the Supreme Court held in DC Wadhwa in 1987 case, is only to meet an extraordinary situation and cannot be perverted to serve political ends. The second reason he gives is this has been promulgated to serve the political ends and not to meet any extraordinary or emergent or emergency situations. This is the second reason he is labeling against this ordinance. And most crucially, the third is adding an additional subject of exemption, that is services, to the existing exemptions, land, public order and police of Delhi's legislative power listed in Article 239AA without amending the constitution is arguably an act of constitutional subterfuge, that is act of constitutional dishonest. Fine. Subterfuge is something which is a kind of dishonest act or something a secretive act. fine. So, arguably the third reason or the point he levels against this ordinance is about what? About these exemptions which has been provided to the fourth that is services apart from land, police and public order, fine, under article 239A. He says that this should have come by through amendments and not through the ordinance. Okay. Finally, the fourth and last, creating a civil services authority where bureaucrats can overrule an elected chief minister destroys long established norms on bureaucratic accountability. That if bureaucrats started appointing bureaucrats, then who will be reporting to whom? Then who will fix their accountability? Fine. So, these are the four, you can say, reasons which has been labeled or by the author against this ordinance. So, for all of these reasons, the ordinance is direct assault on federalism and democracy. Such an unabashed power grabbed by the union government needs to be opposed by all who care for the future of India as a federal democracy. Now, it will what government says, what Congress says, said basically in the initial paragraph we have said that though Delhi is a union territory, but it is of different nature, and this concept of this is what said cooperative federalism principles don't actually fit to the NCTT government, fine. Okay. So, this principle can be of course countered as well, what he has been labeled by the author, but some points are of course legally valid as well. However, opposition parties do not often take position on federalism on first principles or articulate it as a normative idea, and he gives example of AAP itself. AAP cheered the dilution of article 370 and now the Congress refuses to oppose this ordinance. So, this is what to what end your political interest is going to be served. This is on the basis of this very notion you take the stand, fine. AAP didn't say anything on article 370 abolition, but now it has problems, fine. So, India's constitutionalism are threatened as the foundation of India's constitutionalism, that is to legislate according to the norms mentioned in the constitution or to govern according to the constitutional means are threatened. We need a new politics of federalism that reflects and articulates the underlying values of federalism consistently. So, author is saying now we need a new politics of federalism, fine, moving away from this asymmetric kind of nature or cooperative federalism. We need a new set of federalism, fine, where that could reflect and articulates the underlying values of federalism consistently, fine, which we can preserve this notion of federalism, fine. So, this was all in this article. Now, it's up to you that how you how you see this article, to what extent there is a problem in what author is saying, and to what extent you see what he is saying is just being justified. So, as a civil servant, as a rational neutral person, we need to ponder over this article, fine. Next article is about spare the rod and change the law. This is all about what has been recently direction issued by the DGHS, that is Director General of Health Services, on May 12 related to the issuance of or related to the recommendations of generic medicines by the doctors, fine, in place of branded medicines. So, what they are the authors are writing about this, let us see. They are saying spare the rod and change the law, focus now on changing the law, not on punishment and all. So, that DGHS, that is Director General of Health Services, issued another order on May 12 reiterating directions that doctors in central government hospitals prescribe only generic medicines instead of branded drugs. See, so the driving force क्या है इसके पीछे behind these office orders is the standard trope that doctors are in cahoots with the pharmaceutical industry, wherein the doctor receives a kickback for each prescription of particular company's drugs. This is generally leveled against doctors, that they are in hand and gloves with the pharmaceutical companies and they write their medicines because they get some commissions and all. This is generally leveled against the doctors, fine. Okay. So, thus by forcing them to write only generic names of medicines, the hope is that the pharmacist will provide the patients with cheapest available generic drug and thus save them the cost of the more expensive branded drugs. So, this is what the objective of this DGHS, that is Director General of Health Services notification, fine, in order to preserve or rather save the cost of more expensive branded drugs to serve the poorest among the poor. Fine. So this policy objective जो है obviously rests on the assumption that the pharmacist is benevolent individual who does not have his own incentives to sell the patient more expensive branded drugs. Of course, this is the notion. Such orders have been passed earlier as well, and the most recent order does not hide its irritation at having to repeat previous orders. It threatens government doctors with this unspecified further action. So this is what the government, they labeled is threatening with unspecified further action for failing to comply with these directions. So this is the story so far. Now let us see where they are focusing basically. Fine. So firstly, this says that the quality of generic medicines in India is not up to the mark, and there the government needs to bring a law or change the law and to work in this particular area. So here is the quality of generic medicine. What they are talking about is the quality of generic medicine. But before threatening its doctors, perhaps the director should conduct a survey among government doctors, asking them to explain their reluctance to write prescriptions with just generic names. Now they are saying that, or stressing upon that, rather than coming up with such warnings, the government should come out with a survey and ask the government doctors that why they are refusing to write the generic names and they are preferring to write the branded names. Where exactly is the issue? Fine. So it is no secret that many Indian doctors in both public and private sector simply do not trust the quality of all generic medicines. So what they are saying is that doctors themselves do not actually trust the quality of generic medicines that we are actually producing. Fine. This is one case. Further, they have valid reasons for this. India has lagged. Now they are giving the reason that why the doctors are do not trust the quality of all generic medicine in the Indian market. So valid reason for this is India has lagged behind countries like the US in creating appropriate legal and scientific standards that provide guarantees to doctors on the interchangeability of generic medicines with each other and the innovator drug. So basically they are saying that in our country we don't have such kind of setup where the governments are allowed, the doctors are allowed to have this interchangeability of generic medicines with each other and alongside with the branded medicine as well, or innovative drug as well. So what US actually did in the past? So US created this environment of trust which is actually lacking in India, among the Indian doctors, especially the government doctors, mandating as far as back in 1977 itself that most but not all generic drugs be tested on human volunteers in order to measure the rate at which the drug is bioavailable. Bioavailable is something the rate at which the drug dissolves in bloodstream is bioavailable. Fine. So we have, the authors are saying that in our country government didn't come with such kind of large scale you can say experimentation or a survey or this thing where it could the generic drugs could have been tested on human volunteers in order to measure the rate at which the drug is bioavailable, and bioavailable is what? The rate at which the drug dissolves in the bloodstream. Fine. So such testing is required. Why? Because generic manufacturers may use different excipients like binders, coating and punching machines which directly affect the ability of the drug to dissolve in the blood. Fine. So in order to keep the price lesser, they can use, you can say, the poor quality of such stuffs for producing the generic medicines which affects the ability of the drug to dissolve in the bloodstream. Fine. This is what they are saying. So if the dissolution profile of the generic drug is same or similar to that of the innovator drug over a time period, it is declared to be bioequivalent. Fine. Means if the dissolving power or dissolution profile of the generic medicine is same as the dissolution process of branded medicine or any innovator drug, then we call it bioequivalence. Means equivalent or equivalence means both have the same degree of dissolution. Fine. That is generic as well as the innovator drug or the branded drug. So in that case only this could be recommended to or ask government could ask the governments doctors to prescribe only the names of generic medicines if meets out the two properties, that is whether they are bio this available or whether they possess the property of bioequivalent or equivalence. Fine. So, these are the two key terms here. So, further it is not like that we do not have such setup. So, India came up with or mandated such bioequivalence testing only in 2017. Even then the regulations were vague, but the far more worrying aspect from a public health perspective is the fact that recommendations by the Drug Technical Advisory Board to ensure that existing generic drug approved prior to 2017 also be tested for bioequivalence was ignored by the government. So, what DTAB recommended to the government, that even those medicines, generic medicines which were produced before 2017, this recommendation or mandatory guidelines should also made to be tested for their bioequivalence, but that has been ignored by the government. So, this means that a vast majority of drugs in the Indian market have never been tested for bioequivalence. This is a valid point. Hence, the government cannot provide doctors with a legal guarantee that all generic medicines in the Indian market are in fact interchangeable with the innovator drug or they are bioequivalent. Fine. So, this is the point of argument they are giving to justify their this protest against the warnings issued by the DGHS, Directorate of Health Services. Fine. Central government at the central level, okay, against their doctors to prescribe only the names of generic medicine. So, if the government cannot provide such a legal guarantee, it should not be bearing doctors against prescribing their preferred brands. Many doctors have developed faith in particular brands not because they receive bribes, but because patient feedback has taught them that other brands do not work as effectively. Of course, it could be a point of argument as well that government doctors recommend medicines not just because of the expectation of any kickbacks or the bribes, but also because of the effectiveness or effectivity of that particular drug based on their experience and feedback of the patients. Fine. Of course, this is a very valid point. Now, stability testing. The lack of bioequivalence testing is just one of the issues with generic medicine in India. So, first issue was related to the bioequivalence. The other massive problem is the issue of stability. Stability of what? So, stability or other problem is related to stability testing. The key challenge to manufacturing any drugs is to ensure that it remains stable through a strict supply chain in different conditions of heat and humidity. This was what we are just facing during the corona pandemic or the this COVID related drugs or injection, basically the these injections and all. So, what happened during that time, there were many many this in the market, like some American companies issued this COVID related of course medicines. So, of course, all that like booster doses and all. So, the issue was related to the temperature or the storage, that whether those drugs which were made in particularly the vaccines which were produced or which were made in US, whether would be able to, let us say, adapt the Indian condition or not. So, the issue was with the temperature or the storage and of course, mobility in the supply chain during supply chain process as well. So, these were the issues which again raised here, and that we labeled as stability testing, that whether the medicine could meet the standard let us say temperature and humidity conditions in one part of nation compared to the other part, or one set of country compared to the other country. So, this is the issue again need to be taken into account. The second major problem. So, an unstable drug, they say, will start decomposing, possibly reducing its efficacy. Of course, sometimes a tablet will just crumble into powder when removed from its packaging. It could happen. In other instances, the tablet will be visibly discolored, or if it is liquid, particulate matter may be visible. So, many of these problems can be checked if the law prescribed mandatory stability testing prior to providing marketing approval and also while the drug is in the market. So, these are the two tests they recommend, the bioequivalence test alongside the stability test. Fine. Okay. So this common requirement across the world became mandatory in India only in 2018. This stability testing became mandatory in India in the year 2018, and earlier bioequivalence testing made mandatory in India in the year 2017. Remember. So after the government managed to overcome immense opposition from pharmaceutical industry, but once again the new regulations not only lacked scientific rigor but also did not apply retrospectively to generic drugs approved prior to 2018. So here the same problem that we faced in the bioequivalence, the label, that drugs produced before 2017 were not asked to undergo this test, this bioequivalence test. In the similar fashion here as well, on the similar lines, drugs which were produced, generic drugs before 2018 were not asked to have or go through this mandatory stability testing. So there are two lacunas or two flaws they basically label against this government's notification and all. So this means that the generic medicines in the Indian market have not been subjected to mandatory stability testing. This could be an additional reason contributing to quality issues that undermine the trust of government doctors in generic drugs. So the major issues throughout this article they are raising is about the trust of the Indian doctors in generic medicine. Fine, and basically based on technicalities that give two major reasons, that is bioequivalence test and stability test. Had there been these two in India, prior to 2017 or 2018, and even let us say after the 2017 and 2018 mandatory testing recommendation by the government, even then this is not retrospectively, this was not asked by the government to apply retrospectively, because the drugs which were produced prior to 2017 and 2018 are still there in the Indian market, which doesn't meet this criteria or comes under this kind of testings. So of course they label that this could be the grounds of distrust or the lack of trust among the government doctors in not recommending the generic drugs. Fine. Okay, so in the concluding remarks paragraph, these issues related to the quality of generic drugs is not appropriate for the DGHS to force doctors to prescribe drugs by generic names. Rather, DGHS must work towards resolving the genuine concerns being raised by the doctors. A starting point could be ask for regulations which require pharma companies to identify on their packaging whether a drug has been tested for bioequivalence and stability as required by the law. So of course this could be a starting point, asking for these two, the labeling of these two kinds of tests on their particular drug product packets. Building the confidence of doctors in generic medicine serves public interest. Of course, the trust of government doctors are very important in order to serve the public interest, better than threatening them with a punitive action for failing to comply with the directives on mandatory prescription of drugs by their generic names. So of course, it's better to build trust than force them to write or come up with the punitive actions. Fine, this is what a small article but a very good piece of article, based on your drug regulations. Okay, moving ahead. So finally, we are coming to our probably the last topic for the day discussion, and that is the Kavach system. Since what happened in this Balasore, many issues were raised again, against this Kavach system. So what are the salient features of the indigenous developed automatic train protection? This is ATP, basically automatic train protection system by the Research Design and Standard Organization, in which networks and routes has the system been implemented. So basically questioning that whether Kavach system was there fitted on the trains, basically the trains that were collided in Balasore. So whether they were fitted or not, let us check it out. But before that, what exactly is the system? So this was not the system of ATP, or you can say the Kavach system, was given by RDSO, Research Design and Standard Organization, fine, in collaboration with the Indian industry, and not the DRDO. I think I mentioned DRDO initially, pardon for that. Fine. Okay. So the story so far kya hai? The death of over 288 passengers in the ghastly train accident on June 2 at you can say Balasore district of Odisha, and this was Bahanaga Bazaar railway station in Balasore district of Odisha, brought into sharp focus on the safety mechanism needed to prevent such tragedies. Of course, so this system is all about protecting and about safety measures. So what exactly is a Kavach? That is important to know. What is Kavach? So Kavach is indigenously developed automatic train protection ATP system by the RDSO, that is Research Design and Standard Organization, which was in collaboration with the Indian industry. So this much you need to remember. The trials were facilitated by South Central Railways to achieve safety in train operations. This much, this is not that important. What important is what exactly is the Kavach and by which organization actually built this particular system. So of course, it is a state of the art electronic, state of the art technology is something which was available or prevailing at that time, the best of the technology prevailing at the then time, at that time, fine. Like today we have whatever the best technology available, so we call it the state of the art electronic system with safety integrity level SIL level 4 standards. So a very good standard level as well. It is meant to provide protection by preventing trains to pass the signal at red and avoid collision. Red is danger zone or danger mark, signal of danger, So this was basically meant to provide protection by preventing trains to not to cross the red signals and avoid therefore the collision. Okay, it activates the train braking system automatically if the driver fails to control the train as per speed restrictions. So this is a plus point of this system, that Kavach basically activates the train's braking system, fine, when the train is about to jump the red lines and therefore collide with the other trains, even if when driver fails to do the same, fine. So this is what automatic system is. In addition, it prevents the collision between the two locomotives equipped with the functional Kavach system, fine. So the condition is both of the locomotives should have been equipped with this Kavach system. The system also relays SOS messages during the emergency situation. An added feature, another important feature is centralized live monitoring of the train movements through the network monitor system. Okay, so you can also monitor the live location, or you can also monitor the trains, fine, through a centralized mechanism or system that is called centralized live monitoring of train movements. Kavach is one of the cheapest SIL 4 certified technologies where the probability of error is 1 in 10,000 years, remember. So that's why this standard is very important, that probability of error is just 1 in 10,000 years, which is very, very huge. So very, very good innovation or the system provided by RDSO in collaboration with the Indian industry for the safety and security of the passengers, fine. So how does Kavach work on railway system? This is very important now. What is its functional mechanism? Fine. So the traffic collision avoidance system, TCAS, traffic collision avoidance system, with the help of equipment on board the locomotive and transmission towers and station connect. So basically what is it? The simple terms, it is, we have, let us say we have one thing is TCAS, that is traffic collision avoidance system, fine, which with the help of certain equipments on board the locomotive, means train जो चल रही है उस पर ऑलरेडी ऑन बोर्डेड हैं जो इक्विपमेंट्स, एंड ट्रांसमिशन टावर्स जो होते हैं एट स्टेशन कनेक्टेड विद देयर RFID, लाइक हम पेमेंट करते हैं टोल्स पे, इवन दैट यूजेस द RFID सिस्टम, दैट इज रेडियो फ्रीक्वेंसी आइडेंटिफिकेशन टैग्स, helps in basically the two-way flashing of the communications between the station master and the loco pilot to convey any emergency messages. And this is to the two sets of people required to be communicated, because station master taking charge of the particular station, and of course the locomotive, or you can say the pilot or the driver, of course running the particular set of train, fine. So the communication between two people, so two-way communication takes place with the help of this RFID technology through traffic collision avoidance system. The instrument panel inside the cabin helps the loco pilot know about the signal in advance without visual sighting. ठीक है? So जो भी panels लगे हुए हैं instrument panel inside, they let the driver know in advance that whether about the signals, basically about the signal in advance without visual sighting. तो उसको देखने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती, पहले उसे पता लग जाता है कि what exactly is the nature of signaling. Fine, moving ahead. Okay, so permissible speeds to be maintained, So accordingly, they adjust the permissible speeds. If a red signal is jumped, let us say, and two trains come face to face on the same line, the technology automatically takes over and applies sudden brakes, or you can say the emergency brakes. So this is what the best part of this technology is all about, that even if the train jumps out the red signal and comes on the same track, still this technology itself gets activated automatically and put the emergency brakes, and in order to avoid the collision between the two sets of trains. Fine. So this is the best part, the most important point about this system. Okay. Additionally, the hooter activates by itself when approaching a level crossing, which serves as a big boon to loco pilots during fog condition when visibility is low. So during fog, foggy conditions and all during winters, what happens? It additionally, this system Kavach additionally activates the hooter by itself, or you can say automatically, when the two trains are approaching a crossing level. Fine, because of poor visibility. Fine. So this is again an added advantage or feature of this particular system. So now, were these two trains collided with each other or fitted with this cover system or not? This is the biggest question now. So let us now shift to that. So both the Shalimar Chennai and Coromandel Express and the Yeshwantpur Howrah Express were not fitted with the Kavach tags. The Kavach system project is yet to be implemented on the Howrah Kharagpur Chennai line. So it means that had this Kavach been fitted to these sets of trains, we could have saved this number of the lives we have lost and even the injured people, and it could not have happened what exactly happened on this in Balasore. Fine. So you can now understand the utility of this Kavach system. Fine. Okay. Moving ahead. However, Jaya Verma Sinha, member of the Operations and Business Development Railway Board, reasoned that the reaction time and distance were very short as the train was travelling at a very high speed. So, apart from having the system, whether it is fitted or not, what a member of Railway Board said, that this reaction time with the driver and the speed of the train were so that it was that the time and the distance were very short as the trains was travelling at a very high speed. So what it means, that she is saying that it was an unavoidable, you can say, accident. So if an obstruction comes suddenly in front of high moving vehicle, then no technology in the world would prevent an accident. This is what she said, that if an obstruction comes suddenly in front of high moving or speedily moving train, let us say any vehicle even, then no technology in the world would prevent an accident. This is what she said. Okay. Whether it's correct or not, you will have to, think about it. Fine. So where the Kavach been implemented? Now where has the Kavach been implemented? So the Union Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw inspected the trial of the Kavach working system between Gulaguda and Chitgida railway station on the Lingampally Vikarabad section in the Sikandrabad division of the South Central Railway last March. So of course, the South Central Railway zone is a pioneer in the implementation of the Kavach. The Kavach system has been deployed over 146 kilometers in the South Central Railway in 77 locomotives. Additionally, the Sikandrabad-based Indian Railway Institute of Signal Engineering and Telecommunication IRISET hosts the Center of Excellence for Kavach. So again, a preliminary fact, that which basically institute hosts this Center of Excellence for Kavach. Fine. So keep in mind this thing, and let me tell you that this basically implemented majorly in the South Central region or zone, not in this eastern or northern zone particularly. So again, this technology is in its evolving phase. The Institute Kavach Lab rolled out around the year training programs. Of course, training program is there. So what is Kavach deployment strategy? क्या है deploy करने की इसको? Implementation is being taken up in a focused manner by the railway board. The first priority are the high density routes and the New Delhi, Mumbai and New Delhi, Howrah sections, as they have higher chances of accidents. Okay. So it is basically being will be implemented based on the proximity, the chances of accidents and congestion of this routes alongside the density of the routes. Fine, a good augury or good reason as well, because the trains run closer to each other. The second priority lines are highly used networks. The third priority lines are the other passengers high density routes, and the final priority is of course to cover all other routes. The RDSO has approved 3 firms, Medha Servo Drives, HBL and Kernex, for providing Kavach equipment, with the 2 more being in the pipeline. So you can see there are 4 sets of priorities that the railway board has proposed in order to implement this or deploy this Kavach system, fine, which is very important in order to prevent such kind of accidents. Glitches about the vulnerability of vehicle crossing or closed level crossing, stray cattle or boulders on track, radio communication issues in tunnels, ghat sections have been tackled. So this, of course, alongside this Kavach deployment, the railway has taken measures as well in order to prevent or check the vulnerability of vehicle crossing, alongside the stray cattle roaming on the tracks, and then boulders on track and radio communication issues in tunnels, ghat sections and all. Of course, even if you have seen this unmanned railway, this we say this railway fataks and all, even those have been removed. So the system is being under you can say evolving phase or transformation phase. It will indeed take time, but of course Indian Railway is moving on its golden path, fine. And of course Vande Bharat and all that, of course we are seeing the major reforms taking place, of course, in the Indian Railways, fine. Alongside that, of course, with the deployment of full-fledged deployment of Kavach, we would be able to prevent such kind of accidents in future as well, and we could save millions of lives, of course, in the coming decades, fine. So I think hopefully that's it for today, but still let me check if there is any topic which I left. Okay, so we have discussed whichever were the relevant topics for the day. So that's it from my side. Thank you so much for being with us. Stay tuned for the tomorrow's Hindu analysis. Until then, take care. Okay, keep revising. Thank you.